The B2B companies pulling ahead right now aren't doing more. They're doing the right things and cutting what doesn't work. B2B Debunked is where we get into what actually moves the needle and what's just noise. This is B2B Debunked. Today's myth is marketing reporting is one size fits all. I'm joined by Melissa Stevens, a group account director here at Ironpaper. Marketing teams have been trying to prove their ROI to the C-suite for decades. Why is it still so hard?
It's not because marketing isn't working. It's because marketing isn't being measured the way the C-suite actually thinks. So marketers are walking into leadership meetings armed with MQLs and impressions and engagement rate. But the CEO is sitting there thinking about pipeline coverage, and the CFO wants to know about payback period, and the CRO cares about win rates and pipeline velocity. Same company, but three very different languages.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that it becomes really important when we start a new engagement to know who are our points of contact laddering up to and what do those people care about. We may have a CEO that kind of overlaps with the CFO and they want to know everything. I've also had people that are C-suite that were marketers in a former life and they actually do want to know some of the nitty gritty.
At the end of the day, the most important metric to be communicating is marketing influenced revenue. The second marketing can tie itself to revenue, the second it starts proving its value versus being tied to efforts or activity, we're really talking about a growth engine when we can tie marketing to revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we have started to do is actually different reporting for different stakeholders. So if we're doing a quarterly report, a lot of times our marketing counterparts will want to know the nitty gritty. They want to know email open rates. They want to know conversions per campaign, per buyer motivator. And then we'll do always a one slide opener that just has the nuts and bolts for the C-suite because we know they're only going to read one slide. We don't have much time to prove our point. So it's important that we get right down to those revenue numbers or even trying to anticipate because the sales cycles are so long. So sometimes we have to say anticipated influenced revenue, which can be a little wordy, but I still think important.
The B2B sales cycle can be really long. And a lot of times leadership wants to know monthly or quarterly what they've gained. So making sure that marketing teams are managing those expectations with leadership, that those sales cycles can be very complex, and measuring things in between like pipeline coverage ratio. How many folks on the buying committee at those target accounts have we reached and how have we influenced them, even if a deal hasn't closed yet? So again, kind of thinking about revenue related metrics, revenue adjacent metrics, on top of purely influenced revenue is important as well.
I also think it ties back to what happens in the sales process. So before beginning a relationship, I think if a new prospect thinks, okay, you're going to get us new revenue within the first 2 months, that's just not a fit. And so trying to hedge those off early is important.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I'd say more often than not, marketing and sales teams aren't even connected in the right way, where they're not being measured against the same targets. So if marketing and sales aren't both working towards a particular revenue goal, then you don't have a revenue engine. You have a sales team and a marketing team that are just two different departments working in silos. The power really comes from when marketing and sales are in lockstep, marching towards the same revenue targets. And marketing's remit doesn't just stop the second a lead or an account is handed off to sales. There's a true partnership in the accountability of how a deal actually gets closed.
Yeah. And I think unfortunately it makes marketers have to be even tighter on reporting because they often get blamed if sales can't close deals. They have to be a system. It has to be a team. The buyer has to feel like it's just one continuous conversation.
Yeah, and the constant feedback loop between sales and marketing. If deals are falling off the second they get passed onto sales, there's a reason for that. And if marketing and sales can work together to solve that problem, it could be a sales enablement tool that's missing, or it could be misalignment and buyer centric messaging. Again, if we're working from the same script, there's a lot less likelihood that deals are going to stall at that stage.
Yeah. And I think that's important to put in the reporting for the C-suite. If there's a gap, we show the gap. So if we're getting a lot of revenue on the table, but it's not closing and we're totally cut off from sales, our hands are tied. And either we need to sort of open that relationship a little bit more, get sales what they need to close deals.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the most successful reports that we've delivered show just that, where, yes, we've got some great metrics, up front, but there is a drop off from SQL to close deal or whatever those numbers are. And it's so telling. And then at least we know exactly where to look and we can pull data and buyer intelligence from the marketing campaigns that we've collected and start to dig deep into, okay, where are things really going awry? Is it because we're not talking to the right person on the buying committee, or we don't have the right message, or again, is it a sales enablement piece? But that's where marketing becomes so powerful, that buyer and data intelligence that leads us to solve really tough marketing problems. And our clients appreciate that transparency and problem solving kind of consulting that we do.
So, what are the first steps for marketing to fix this issue?
So the first thing is making sure you have the right CRM so that you can track all of the right buyer intelligence and that sales is using the CRM along with marketing. So you're starting to see the connections of where those buyers are interacting with the brand and then what that buying journey looks like through to close deal. Outside of that, there are a couple of mindset shifts that also need to happen. So I started to mention first that sales and marketing need to be accountable to the same goals. If sales and marketing are not tracking towards the same numbers, you really just have two different teams who are working in silos versus a true revenue engine, which is what we're going for. The second one, and we mentioned this before, but it's so important, is making sure that you are tracking the metrics that leadership cares about. Obviously, the holy grail is influenced revenue. That's what we're trying to get to. But we should also be looking at things like cost per customer acquisition payback, looking at things like pipeline coverage ratio, how deep are we into those target accounts, and then cost per qualified opportunity versus cost per lead is another powerful metric that gets us really close to influenced revenue if we can't get to that number. And then the third one is making sure that you're building attribution that respects the complexity of the buyer's journey. Your attribution model should be multi touch, it should be at the account level, and it should be tied to deal stage. If a CFO can track a closed won deal through every marketing touch that influenced it, skepticism turns into budget. It can be that easy.
Yeah, those are all really good points. And I think I like starting with the CRM and then ending with where that revenue is going. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. Be sure to subscribe to B2B Debunked and don't miss the next episode.